Questions have been asked as to how an attack on the United States Capitol can happen. A look at a high-level military account gives us some insight as to what went wrong. Capitol police officers overrun on their own turf. There were warnings that something like this could happen. A Department of Defense timeline shows us just how vulnerable the Capitol Police Department was. Let's start in the days leading up to the riots. It started with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser requesting the D.C. National Guard to work in a traffic control capacity on January 6th. While this request is in the works, the Department of Defense confirmed with the U.S. Capitol Police there would be no request for support at the Capitol. 1 day later and 2 days before the deadly riots, the U.S. Capitol Police confirms again there is no requirement for Department of Defense support. Despite the warnings of pro-Trump demonstrations taking place in D.C., several people briefed on the law enforcement's response told the Associated Press U.S. Capitol Police did not bolster its staff. On the afternoon of Wednesday, January 6th, shortly after 1, the acting Secretary of Defense receives reports demonstrators are moving to the Capitol. 20 minutes later, the Capitol Police ordered an evacuation. As chaos is erupting, Mayor Bowser called the Pentagon to request additional forces. The Capitol Police Chief requested assistance 15 minutes later, nearly 45 minutes after initial reports that rioters were moving to the Capitol. Shortly after 3, the full activation of the D.C. National Guard was approved, and all guardsmen were mobilized. At that same time, rioters attempted to break into the north side of the Capitol. Ashton Benedict, who leads the Washington Field Division for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, says the rioters were armed with more bear spray and pepper spray than the officers trying to keep them out.
There was a failure of leadership at the top of the Capitol Police.
It wasn't until nearly 7 hours after the riots started that Capitol Police declared the Capitol secure. According to the Army, the 1st Maryland National Guard arrived the next morning at 10 a.m. And hours later, an announcement was made that Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund would resign. This chaos led to the death of one of the department's own officers, and at least a dozen other officers were injured. At the Capitol, Colby Satterfield, WUSA 9.